Hola, everybody. Welcome to the Chats with Yvonne podcast with me, your host, Yvonne, where I talk about public speaking con cultura. In today's podcast episode, we're going to talk about finding your support system and community as a speaker. This is a topic that is incredibly important to me as an introvert, but especially as someone that grew up in surrounded by community. As Latinas, our cultura asks us constantly to be in community, consciously, unconsciously. O sea, cuando llegas a la casa, tú tienes que saludar a cada una de esas personas by hand. You have to be in community. You have to be there for people, and you have to give and serve. There are a lot of things that we can unlearn from being conditioned in that way. But I think at the core, community is so important to our success, especially as speakers. So today, I want to talk about how to find our support system and really what that actually looks like for us. How are we operating within a community, and what can we do to help create community or simply be a part of it? Because I think sometimes a lot of us are feeling like maybe community is lacking and we want to be the ones to build it because we're not seeing it anywhere. But might we be able to sit back and ask ourselves, what communities can I join? Or if they don't exist, what can I do to create them and under what conditions? Before we get started with today's podcast episode, y'all know I have to reach for one of our cards from the Public Speaking con Cultura practice card deck. And the last few episodes, we have done El Chisme, which is all around storytelling, La Emoción, voice inflection, and we did an affirmation in the latest podcast episode. So I chose Movimiento. And this one's all around nonverbals and your body language. The prompt is choose 5 adjectives to describe your essence as a speaker. Use your nonverbals, posture, hand gestures, facial expressions, etc., to communicate its meaning. And then I have a consejo on here. Identifying your essence as a speaker will help you understand the type of public speaker you want to be. Motivational, educational, workshop facilitator, etc., which will guide your speaking style. For the purposes of this, because I don't want to sit here and list 5 verbs and adjectives, and also this prompt, if you are watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see my facial expressions and see what I mean, but I'll describe it out loud as well as I'm doing it for those of you that are tuning in through audio only. So if I were to describe my essence, I think I'd describe it in the same way that other people have described it to me, which is that I am welcoming and kind, that I give a very kind, that I exude kindness. And I think that has to do with me just being me. It's kind of who I am, but my tone of voice as well. I think everything plays a role in how I show up. It's that introversion that communicates calm and ease versus boldness and loudness, right? So, if I were to embody kindness, I guess kindness would be maybe relaxed posture and hands opened outward, but also pointing to self. Because I think kindness to me comes from within. And so when I communicate kindness, it's also in my eye expressions. It's where my hands are. They're down here, closer to the body, I think. A body language expert might be like, you're completely wrong. But in my mind, because that's what I exude, supposedly, I don't know, right? But because that's my essence as a speaker, I do think it has a lot to do with, I keep my hands close to myself. I bring people in with my hand gestures as well. Meaning when I'm talking about community-oriented initiatives, it's about you in the audience and about me and about us all together. I also think that my eyes, right, my expressions through my eyes and my eyebrows, kindness to me is also a relaxed facial expression. It also means soft, direct eye contact, right? It's almost like smizing, except less intense. So, anyway, I think if I were to sit here and the way that I would like for everybody else, the way that I envisioned everybody else practicing this and doing the prompt is, I want you to really find what your essence as a speaker is. And these could be a combination of the things that come most naturally to you, as well as the things that you want to work on to exude. And find in your body, in your nonverbal communication, what that actually looks like. So that when you go on stage, you are also subconsciously for your audience exuding that and communicating that through your nonverbals and through your posture. If I want to say that I am a kind person, but my eyebrows are frowned all of the time throughout the entirety of my presentation, might that not exude that? So what can I do to exude kindness on stage? So if you're going to do it at home, if you have your cards and you want to do that specific prompt at home, I would take some time to sit down, write a few of those things that describe your essence, and then do something with your nonverbals to communicate that without saying anything. And it could be even more fun if you had someone there trying to guess what emotion or what essence you're trying to communicate. So now let's get right into the episode. I sort of started touching on this in the beginning, but I think as Latinas, community is so important. Some of my deepest beliefs about community come from the way that I grew up. And I want to share a few of those. I first learned community within my small family unit. My mom, my brother, and my sister. That is my immediate community. It always will be. Before I even expand it out to friends, other family, teachers, my neighbors, my immediate community was within the household. And that cemented a lot of my beliefs around how I think about community and what it's like for me to be a part of a community as well. The very first recollection of being in community, what I think it means to be in community, is cuida tu hermano. I'm the oldest of three. I've been a community leader. The moment my brother was born, I became a community leader, is the way that I like to see it sometimes. Find your brother's shoes. Get your brother ready. Make sure your brother gets in the shower. Feed yourselves. My direct family unit is my community. As crazy as it might have been, and as much as I look back sometimes, I'm like, dang, I had a lot of responsibility as a little girl. It was beautiful. It is beautiful because it made me who I am. And I think that learning community in that way is beautiful. It was a little crazy at times, and I do look back, I'm like, wow, I had a lot of responsibility for a little girl, but it is the foundation of my role in community and how I show up for people today. So I want to share, I wrote down some lessons that I learned about community from my Cultura, and I want to share those with y'all. Food is meant to be shared. I remember growing up, my uncles and my mom, everybody in my family unit would say, food is meant to be shared. Si tú no tienes lo suficiente para compartir, don't even bring your food out. If you don't have enough to share with everybody, don't bring your food out. But even if you don't have enough or you think you don't have enough, de aquí comen todos. That has always been my foundation around food specifically. And think about how that nurtures your community, your sense of community. Both from, hey, si yo no tengo para comer, I know that someone has my back. And also, yo tengo que dar y puedo dar. O sea, tengo que dar, not like I have to, but I mean, tengo con qué, right? If there are 10 tortillas y un poquito, así bien poquito de frijoles, we can all eat. 10 tacos de frijoles can be eaten. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's so beautiful. And it's something that I carry with myself till this day. I am not stingy around a lot of things, but especially food. Food to me, si lo tengo, I will always share. I will always ask you if you want some of my food. And I will never question if, actually, there was one time with my brother, I would question, like, dude, why'd you take my leftovers? Like, those are mine. I'm not going to lie. But that's different. That's a whole different thing. But it's this sense of community of I eat, you eat, we all eat. And that's beautiful. That's a beautiful lesson, I think, to hold with me. Porque it's not about me. It makes it so that I don't selfishly walk this world, that I know that there are other people around me and I am conscious about their existence and welcome their existence. Segundo, aunque te caigan gordos, we show up for each other because only we know what it's really like to be in this community, in this family unit. And when I say que te caigan gordos, right, when someone's annoying, like my brother, my little brother's annoying, my little sister's annoying at times, my own mom is annoying at times, we all annoy each other at times. But only we really know what we've lived through and the type of support that we need. And being in that community, in that family unit, and understanding that we are humans and there are going to be certain things that annoy me about the ways that you talk, the ways that you wash the dishes or don't, take out the trash or don't, that becomes irrelevant when it's time to show up for one another. Cuando ocupo un favor o cuando tú ocupas algo, you know that you can count on me to help you out no matter what our differences are. And that is beautiful too. No matter what our differences are, I operate out of love because I know you and I know that you know me. And that's what it's like to be in community. That's what I feel community is. We don't agree on everything. We have different ways of going about things, but I see you and I am here for you. I wrote this one down because I don't know if anybody else has this experience, but do y'all remember when we used to show up randomly to people's homes unexpectedly? And it was because at the time, and I don't even remember, like I'm pretty sure phones were a thing, but you would get charged every call, every text. So me and my mom and my brother, we would all get ready and head over to my mom's friend's house unannounced. I always thought, gosh, we didn't even give him time to, actually, I didn't think this at the time, but now I think we didn't even give them time to clean around a little bit if they had a little bit of a mess. But one, it taught me two things. One, I can't do that. I have to set my boundaries because I don't even like unexpected phone calls, let alone someone visiting me unexpectedly. But two, that minus all of that, minus the lack of boundaries there, we're welcoming. We welcome you anytime that you need somewhere to go. Even if you don't need it, even if it's just, hey, you want to hang out, this house is for you. This space is for you and it's available to you. I'm available to you should you really need me. And I think that's beautiful. My mom was a single mom when I was growing up, and that meant that a lot of times maybe she needed to show up to a work thing, but had to have someone go pick up the kids from school. You always give and receive favores. And it teaches me that community, as much as it is about I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, it's also about reciprocity and really seeing one another, expressing your boundaries and providing reciprocity. I haven't always been great at the boundaries part. And because of that, it's been a lot of me give. And yes, of course, receive as well in return, but in a way that doesn't allow me to truly be in community because there are things that I'm suppressing or boundaries that I'm not allowing to be known, that I'm not communicating. And so knowing that my mom grew up, knowing that my mom was a single mom while I was growing up, and knowing that ella tuvo que averiguárselas. There were many moments where she actually, I'm sure, lacked community, lacked the people that she could go to and ask for a favor. And so it teaches me that community can be there for you, but also there are moments where you're not going to feel comfortable asking someone to be there for you. And so, which is why what this podcast is about creating those support systems and finding that community for ourselves so that we don't encounter as many moments like that where we feel alone. We learned to save in community. I don't know who remembers La Tanda, right? We leverage each other to grow. And La Tanda, I don't know what it's called in English, but I think is it an official saving mechanism? I don't know, but everybody contributes to a pot. Y cada mes, the whole pot le toca a alguien más. And it was a way of saving your money and contributing to the pot. And at the end of the day, you could redeem that. And I just always remember La Tanda, La Tanda, La Tanda. So we learn to save in community. that maybe we don't have the resources, the access to capital, but when we do it in community, we just might be able to access that capital. Of course, I think this one is across cultures, but respect for your elders. And it's respect, not they have more power over you, but respect for your elders in the sense of, I have not lived the life that you have lived yet. And I can't tell you about the life that you've lived. I respect you for the wisdom that you're able to provide to me. It doesn't always mean that I'll listen to it, that I'll follow the way that you did things, but there's a respect that I hold for you because you are someone that has walked this earth prior to me being on it. And of course, there are things that we have to learn and unlearn from that type of mentality, but I do think that there's something really special about it. In particular with public speaking, traditions, knowledge, values have always been passed down through the spoken word, primarily by our elders. Why? Because they have so much to teach us. They have so many stories, so many lessons that come from the stories that they can tell us. And that's why I hold that as one of my deepest values, is recognizing, seeing, holding our elders, because they are so powerful. They are the ultimate public speakers in my book. And the last one that I thought about was not showing up empty-handed. When we're a part of a community, cuando vas a la fiesta, si te invitan a comer, aunque te inviten a comer y te digan, no, don't bring anything, don't worry about it. I cannot show up empty-handed. I'll bring una sodita, maybe I'll bring some chips or something if I am not contributing a larger dish, but you cannot show up empty-handed. And sometimes it's like, I can understand why someone would be like, oh, yeah, but if they said no, don't bring it. So I totally get that, right? And also, if you don't have the means to participate in that capacity or bring something, it's okay. O sea, no pasa nada, right? But what I think that taught me in not showing up empty-handed is that we all have a social responsibility to show up. You cannot come to a community and take and not give something in return as well. It is very, very important to contribute. In fact, you're expected to contribute to this community. And I think that that's what differentiates a surface level type of support and community that we can build, and something real and meaningful. It's that we are here for you, but we expect you to also hold space for everybody else. In the way that we accept your differences, we also expect you to be open to everybody else's differences. In the same way that we love you, we expect you to love everybody else just the same. And that, I think, is an incredible lesson to hold for ourselves as we create community for ourselves, as we join communities and find our own communities within the larger community. It's very, very important to continue to anchor ourselves on, I also need to, and I'm expected to provide and contribute. So those are lessons that I learned about community from my Cultura, and that drive my foundation as a community leader and as a person that's a part of other communities. I'm going to talk about finding your community as a speaker. Y'all know that I'm an introvert, and I do my best thinking by myself. My most creative ideas come to me when I get my alone time. And yet, the very first time that I keynoted a conference, I still needed a community. I needed someone that I could look out to in the audience and that would be there for me. So even in my moments where I isolate myself because it's part of my creative process, I understand that it's very important for me to have someone out in the audience that I love, that I know cares for me. To find this person, I want to describe to you what my person for the very first keynote that I gave, who they were. They had a giant smile in the audience. They were front row. They know me. There was still so much to learn because you never stop growing and learning from one another, but she knew me. She knew who I was at my core. And I always think about this, but the person that I had on the front row wasn't my best friend. It wasn't my mom, because I feel like that would have made me even more nervous. But this person still knew me. I still had a connection with this person. They reflected with me afterwards, after the entire keynote, and hyped me up. They guided me through questions that gave me a deeper understanding of the moment that I had just lived. And those words, that reflection that they initiated, sat with me for the rest of my speaking career. And she's a total extrovert. And the person is my English teacher, Abby. She was front row, smiling big as ever. When I felt uncomfortable, right at the beginning especially, I would look over at her. And I needed that. I needed energy levels up here. I needed that extroversion from her. And then I also needed the post sort of affirmation of what had just happened, and someone to help me reflect about what I had just experienced for the very first time. So finding someone that maybe isn't the closest person to you, but they still have a deep understanding of who you are, is important. If that's something that you need, at the front row when you deliver your very first keynote, or any keynote for that matter, who is that person for yourself? Reflect on who that person is. Who might you want in the front row? I always get, till this day actually, y'all, which is wild, I don't think my mom has ever gone to one of my speaking engagements, except the Latina Presente public speaking immersive experience, my very first event. That was the first time that I think my mom had actually been in the audience of me speaking. I think it's a sign from the universe that the day that my mom is in the audience for one of my keynotes, that it's probably going to be the best keynote I've ever delivered. All right. So based on what I just mentioned, my first tip for finding the person for you or your community is, if you're an introvert, my step was find an extrovert. We often are more comfortable with the people that are just like us, or that we feel comfortable with because we see them every day, or because, whatever the case is. But the idea here is to choose community with people that are different from you. Most of my friends, in fact, are extroverts. Sometimes I need a little bit of their energy to push me through. And I don't just take, I give too. I give a lot of that peaceful type of energy and reflection as well. And what's really funny is that I've noticed that when I hang out with other introverts, I somehow become the extrovert. Because to some capacity, I don't know if I'm like, oh, maybe I need to be the extrovert for both of us, because I know what it's like to be an introvert that needs that extrovert to just go for it. Very interesting. I'd probably have to do more digging there, but I'd love to do even more research on why that is. And at the end of the day, it's really not about extroversion or introversion. It's about companionship. That's probably why when I am with someone else, I feel more comfortable. It's like when you're the new kid in school and you finally make a friend, you feel more comfortable to make more friends. And at the end of the day, community is about companionship. So finding a person that you feel in community with and that you feel can be there, can keep you company. That's so important. One of the reasons why finding your community and support system is so important is because feedback is incredibly important to your growth as a public speaker, but we're not going to receive it from someone that we don't respect, or that we feel may not respect us, or doesn't understand our lived experiences. So when you find that person, when you find your community, it's incredibly important to, at the same time, have some shared values, have some shared lived experience. Not 100%, because we all experience things very differently, but think about the feedback that you want to receive from them as a speaker. You want to value that feedback. You want to be able to internalize it and not take it personal. And how is that going to happen if you find someone that you respect and that you can be in community and companionship with? And also, finding a community as a speaker, to me, it's also about inspiration and encouragement. I love being around people that are passionate about something. That when they talk about that one thing that they're super passionate about, let's say someone's really passionate about erasers and the different types of erasers, them talking about that so passionately makes me feel so much more comfortable around them. It makes their faces light up, and it makes me so curious about them. As a speaker, Community can come from those folks that have a deep passion for something. It can come from you have something really amazing to share. And I just love being in your presence. So your community can actually come from finding those people that have a deep passion for something. Because I think that inspires you and that encourages you to continue being a speaker, to continue sharing your own passions. One of the best ways to find community is obviously through mentorships and going to events, but thinking about hobbies that you really enjoy doing. For example, when I first moved to San Diego, I joined a boxing club. And I didn't know that I enjoyed doing that actually, but what I did enjoy was being in classes. And then eventually I made friends there. I made one friend that I'm still friends with. We haven't talked in a while because she's traveling all over the world and she's super busy, but we keep in contact here and there. And having her as an anchor and a community member while I was at the gym, it made my gym experience so much better. So, as a speaker, attending those types of workshops and events where there might be people that are interested in the same things that you're interested in. Find events where there are people that might enjoy the same things that you do, because that's how you can find community. It's not necessarily connecting at first over the deepest, most emotional parts of your story or lived experience, or the fact that maybe they have the same lived experience, but it's about connecting over something that's joyful, that's fun, so that they can be your support system. I think finding the right support system as a public speaker, I would almost have different buckets for it. On one end is, what community do I have that allows me to find joy, that allows me to do things that I really love and enjoy? Because when you are finding joy in hobbies or things that you do, that shows up in the way that you speak, in the way that you share your message of transformation. Then there is, who in my community can actually give me real tough feedback so that I can grow as a public speaker? Who's better fitted to give me that type of feedback? And who might be able to see different things in the way that I'm speaking and provide that for me, so I feel comfortable with them for feedback? Then it's, who is my community as far as being my biggest advocate? Who really cares about my growth as a speaker? And do they have potentially the connections to help me grow as a speaker, right? I think community and network here can be interchangeable. And those I would say are kind of the buckets for public speaking. And so if you're thinking about in those buckets, finding community to be that joyful, more be there for me as a friend community, go to those events where they have similar hobbies to you. If your point is maybe, hey, I want someone to give me that feedback, where can I find mentorship? Reach out to folks on LinkedIn, go to events. If maybe it's about, hey, I want to build my community around who has access and resources to capital for me to really be a well-paid public speaker, go to those events, reach out to those people. And really, finding community doesn't have to be that complicated. As adults, I feel like it's so hard to make friends these days, but being intentional with community. And I think one of the biggest things is understanding when, hey, is there a lack of community here, or have I just not found community yet? Do I need to create something, or is it better for me to just be a part of a community? So many of us, I think especially as Latinas, first-gen Latinas in a lot of these different industries and spaces, we're like, I want to create something that I've never seen before, that I've never felt before. And we are so often creating something for ourselves for the very first time. But there are also other people creating communities out there for themselves for the very first time. How can we join forces with them? How can we create community together? Sometimes I want to be a part of a community. I don't necessarily want to lead community. There are moments where I am feeling like that. There are moments where it is my passion to do that, or I feel a drive to lead community. But there are so many more moments where I just want to be in community with everybody. The most important thing I think to consider, and especially based on the foundation of my sense of community, which comes from my cultura, is give as much as you're receiving. Be intentional with your relationships. My cultura taught me so much about community, but it's also given in to my people-pleasing tendencies. Set those boundaries. Understand when can I be in community? What's going to make me a better public speaker? And once I'm a better public speaker, how can I provide back to this community? How can I make sure that, hey, someone's helping me elevate my game by providing me feedback in my public speaking journey, or by providing me a space to sit and reflect about what my speaking journey is like and listening to me? How can I contribute to their growth? How can I contribute by providing a space to listen to someone else? I think it's so incredibly important to be just really aware of everybody in the room and not talk too much and not talk too little. It's all a balance. But at the core, if we focus on the love that we have for one another and understanding that I am love, you are love, we are all love, finding community becomes a lot easier. Finding that support system becomes a lot easier. When I can understand that, hey, I'm going to come into this space and give you love, and in return, I expect love. That leads to incredible support systems across the board. If you are joining a community and you're not doing it out of love, true, genuine love, it may not be as fruitful as you would like it to be. And I'm talking about that too, especially because I'm reading A Return to Love, and that book is changing my brain and my heart. Yeah. Before I go into the last segment of this podcast episode, where we go into an aspect of Cultura and tie it back to public speaking, something related to the podcast episode outside of what we're talking about, I want to leave you with a couple reflection questions about community that, more than anything, y'all know my framework for helping you master the art of public speaking is reflect, connect, share. It means that reflection piece is so important. So I want to leave you with a few reflection questions to think about throughout the rest of your week. And those are, what do you look for in community, and what do you contribute? How has your cultural background influenced the communities you gravitate toward? What is the most challenging aspect of being part of a community for you? Reflect on a time when you felt excluded from a community. What did you learn from that experience? What do you wish was different about your current communities? How do you ensure inclusivity and belonging in the spaces you create or join? If you could create your ideal community, what would it look and feel like? And I hope that reflecting on these questions, you can get really transparent with the way that you show up in community and the way that you would like for others to show up for you in community. And that will help guide your public speaking journey. Now, before we go, in continuation and celebration of Black History Month, I want to talk about Black women. Black women, first of all, are just incredible. But more specifically, I want to shout out Black women because they're the epitome of inclusive, of community, of creating community, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. I have never made to feel anything but loved by Black women in my life. And so they deserve all of their flowers. And this community-oriented approach makes them powerful speakers too. If you have heard, some of the most amazing speakers are Black women. And sure, maybe I'm making generalizations here, but I think this is a good one. I think this is a factual one. Their history, their love of community and people is their foundation for the way that they speak. They bring that to every stage. They have such a hurtful history here in the United States, and they have turned that into pure love. And you can hear that in the way that they communicate and advocate for communities. Throughout this moment in time that we're experiencing, Black women have been so fundamental to advocacy for the immigrant population and the immigrant community. I've seen so many Black women on TikTok, on Instagram, talking about even teachers and educators, right? Talking about, come into my room. If you come into my room, just watch what's going to happen. And they so fiercely advocate for people outside of their community, not just their own. And so I think that as Latinos, as being a part of the Latina community, we have so much to learn from Black women. I'm going to share in the description of this podcast episode an article to some research around this idea of Black women creates community so beautifully. So take a look at that. I encourage you to thank Black women in your life, to reflect even on that and realize and think about they've got it down. I have never made to feel anything but loved by Black women in my life. So to all my Black women out there, thank you. I see you. I feel your love and I thank you for it, because you don't have to give it, but you do. And I love you. I love you. With that being said, y'all, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the time that you spent with me today. Remember to like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you thought about this episode, and nos vemos a la próxima. Bye, y'all.